Get those hands up and pray. Yeah, I spent all day witnessing. For some reason, the Jehovah's Witnesses are out in force. I mean, every 20 yards or so. So I've been talking, but it's unbelievable. They usually are in twos. And so I managed to get to three teams of two today. Two of the teams just asked me to leave. So the third team that I went up to, I was very careful, and I go, look, before I say what I'm going to say, I don't want to offend anybody. I just want to explain why I believe what I believe. And this guy was really cool, and I tried to get him to think in terms of understanding all the scriptures, not just like some sects do. Some sects will just pick a couple of verses, 3 or 4 verses, like for instance the Church of Christ, they'll pick water. And I was telling this guy, what happens when you get so focused on one thing, like in this instance water, it could start raining outside and people just go nuts thinking people are getting saved. Or like these guys, Jehovah's Witness, I was talking to them and explaining that if Jesus were the Archangel Michael, then he would have corrected Thomas, who said, "My Lord and my God." I've heard some people, apologists, quote unquote, try to say, well, Thomas was just surprised. You know, when you see somebody, they go, "My God, I haven't seen you for a while." Well, no, that's not what Thomas was doing, but that's the type of argument you run into. And so the one thing I like to do with Jehovah's Witnesses, point out Psalm 102, verses 25 through 27, which talks about the eternity of Yahweh. Very straightforward verse, nothing tricky about it. But what I was trying to do is to get them to understand that the writer of Hebrews uses those exact 3 verses in Psalm 102 and applies those to Jesus and his eternal nature. Same way, Psalm 45, verses 6 and 7 apply to, again, the author of Hebrews is laboring not laboring, but I just point out casually, he's applying the 2 verses in Psalm 45 to Jesus and in Hebrews 1, 8 and 9. So you have Hebrews both 1, 8 and 9, Hebrews 1, 10 through 12, both Hebrews. I was telling this guy, the guy in Hebrews is not trying to make some theological statement or anything. He's just casually pointing out Christ's deity. So eventually I give him a few of these verses, and he wants to give me a verse from Colossians 1:13, where terms are used like God, begotten, or the Son, or whatever role of inferiority that they want to place on Jesus. And I simply said, yeah, we have to keep that in mind. We also have to keep in mind where he's only begotten, things like that. But at the end of the day, we have to look at the original languages, look at those terms, and see what the real definition of those are. Because English didn't even exist when those Koine Greek terms were written down. But at any rate, he pointed out Colossians 1:13. I go, well, let's look at the total context, and I referenced Colossians 2:9. So just one chapter later, Paul is talking about the deity of Christ and what makes God God. Everything that makes God God in Colossians 2:9 is applied to Jesus. So, but and we talked about some other things, free will, stuff like that. I just, that's why you have to have a good teacher, and my hat is tipped to James White, Dr. James White, for pointing these scriptures out that the New Testament writers had no hesitation whatsoever. Peter, Paul, John, Jude, you name them, it just casually pointed out that these are applied to Jesus. So get those hands up high.